The winter sky over Europe was the color of old steel, heavy and unyielding, when the news reached headquarters. The Rhine had been crossed. Not cautiously, not methodically, but with a speed that felt almost insolent, as if the river itself had been insulted by how quickly it had been overcome. 36 hours. Bridges seized, armor pouring through, infantry advancing as if the river had been nothing more than a line on a map. George S. Patton had done it. In the hours that followed, telephones rang without pause. Staff officers moved with tight faces and quick steps. Reports stacked on desks like sandbags against a rising flood of consequence. Some men smiled quietly, knowing history had just lurched forward. Others felt the chill of something darker, envy, fear, and the dangerous knowledge that brilliance often makes enemies faster than it makes victories. Bernard Montgomery was not smiling. He stood rigid in his headquarters, staring at the map as if the Rhine itself had betrayed him personally. For weeks he had planned, argued, refined, and delayed. His crossing was to be a masterpiece of coordination, a triumph of order and control. And now Patton had stolen it, not just the river, but the moment. The headlines would not speak of careful preparation. They would speak of speed, of audacity, of a general who did not wait to be told history was ready. Montgomery turned from the map and spoke with cold precision. This cannot be allowed to stand. Within hours, his message was drafted. It was not emotional. It was clinical, wrapped in the language of discipline and alliance. Patton, he argued, was reckless. His advance endangered supply lines, coordination, and unity of command. Such insubordination, even when successful, set a dangerous precedent. The demand was simple and shocking in its clarity. Patton should be fired. The message did not stop in Europe. It crossed the Atlantic, leapt from secure line to secure line, until it reached a man who had spent his life watching ambition clash with reality on battlefields far from the Rhine. Douglas MacArthur received the message in a quiet room, far from the cold of Europe, surrounded by maps of another war, another theater, another set of egos waiting to collide. He read Montgomery's words slowly. MacArthur had known men like Patton all his life. Men who frightened cautious commanders. Men whose very existence challenged the idea that war could be fully controlled. Patton was not easy. He was not polite. He was not safe. But he was something else, something rare. MacArthur folded the paper and did not speak for a long moment. Outside, aides waited, sensing the gravity of the silence. When MacArthur finally rose, it was not with anger, but with the calm of a man who had already reached his conclusion. "Get me Eisenhower," he said. The line crackled as the call was placed. Thousands of miles vanished between them, replaced by the tension of shared command and unspoken rivalry. Eisenhower's voice came through, steady but weary. He had already heard whispers. He knew what this conversation would be about. "I assume you've seen Montgomery's request," Eisenhower said. "I have," MacArthur replied. "And I assume you're being pressured to consider it." There was a pause. "He makes a case," Eisenhower said carefully. "About coordination. About discipline." MacArthur's voice remained even. "And how many rivers has Montgomery crossed in 36 hours? Eisenhower exhaled slowly. "That's not the point." "That is exactly the point," MacArthur said. "War does not reward men for planning beautiful failures. It rewards men who succeed when the moment demands it." Another silence followed, heavier than the first. MacArthur walked to the window, looking out at a distant horizon. "Let me tell you something, Ike. Every great victory in history has been called reckless by men who arrived too late to claim it." Eisenhower did not interrupt. "Patton is difficult," MacArthur continued. "So was Alexander. So was Caesar. So was every commander who understood that speed is not chaos, it is decision." Montgomery's name hung unspoken between them. "He wants Patton fired," Eisenhower said quietly. MacArthur's tone sharpened just slightly. "No. He wants Patton removed because Patton exposed the difference between caution and courage." The words landed hard. MacArthur returned to his desk and picked up the paper again. "If you fire Patton," he said, "you will not gain unity. You will teach every aggressive commander that success is punishable if it embarrasses the wrong man." Eisenhower knew that was true. He also knew the political weight Montgomery carried. Alliances were fragile. Egos were volatile. The war was not just fought against the enemy, but within the command itself. "And what would you have me say?" Eisenhower asked. MacArthur did not hesitate. "Tell Montgomery this," he said. "Tell him that when a general crosses the Rhine in 36 hours, you do not ask for his dismissal. You ask how far he can go before the enemy realizes the war is already lost." Eisenhower closed his eyes for a moment. "There will be consequences," he said. "There always are," MacArthur replied. "But history only remembers which side won." When the call ended, MacArthur remained seated, staring at the folded message. He thought of Patton's flaws, his dangerous mouth, his unfiltered confidence. He thought of Montgomery's caution, his need for validation, his fear of being eclipsed. And he thought of the soldiers moving east, boots in the mud, tanks rumbling forward, living on momentum and belief. He dictated his response. It was brief. It did not insult Montgomery. It did not praise Patton openly. It simply stated that extraordinary success in extraordinary circumstances was not grounds for dismissal, but evidence of command effectiveness. Any further attempts to restrain operational momentum, the message implied, would be reviewed in light of their impact on the overall victory. When Montgomery received the reply, he read it twice. The words were polite, but the meaning was unmistakable. Patton would not be fired. The victory would stand. Montgomery felt something tighten in his chest. Not rage, something colder. The realization that history had chosen its hero, and it had not chosen him. On the front lines, Patton did not know about the demand. He was already pushing forward, barking orders, eyes alive with the fire of movement. To him, the Rhine had never been the objective. It was merely an obstacle that had insulted his sense of speed. When he eventually heard rumors of the controversy, he laughed. "Fired," he said to an aide. "For winning too fast." He mounted his vehicle and looked east. "Tell them if they want me to slow down, they'll have to shoot me from the front." Weeks later, as German resistance collapsed under the weight of relentless advance, the argument seemed almost absurd. The river was behind them. The enemy was breaking. What had once been a political crisis became a footnote swallowed by victory. But in private rooms, long after the guns fell silent, men would remember that moment. The demand, the refusal, the quiet sentence spoken by MacArthur that traveled through command channels like a verdict. "War," he had said, "does not belong to the cautious when opportunity strikes. It belongs to the man who crosses the river before anyone else believes it can be crossed."